We sit with them, try to look at the motivational factors, what we can lead, how we can lead them, give them direction, a plan of action. And sometimes we have to take small steps. We have some parolees that are very overwhelmed the first day that they're released. They cannot even look at a calendar. It's too much for them. So we sit down together, and I like to meet with the parolees on a weekly basis until they actually obtain employment. So we sit down and we do daily tasks or simple things until they get used to being out in society again. And I remind many of the parolees to look at the prevention, the relapse prevention plans, especially if it's with any type of substance abuse. I ask them or recommend or suggest that they look at it daily. This is classroom practice. I had them fill it out, and we also critique those just to make sure that they were completing the application correctly and legibly, because that's a very important factor when they're out there in the working area and working environment, to make sure that they can fill out the application correctly. If it's not, of course, most of the time or the majority of the time, the application is thrown away. So we do practice those also. And we actually sit down with the individual parolee and interview them. They're a candidate for potential employment. We critique them, and this is one of the rubrics that we use. We ask a series of questions. I've given you examples of some of those that we ask. We don't ask the same one or the same questions to every parolee, because some of them may go back into the waiting area or reception area and say, oh, well, this is what they asked me. We want them to mentally prepare themselves when they come into the actual interview. Depending on the way the question is asked, have you been convicted of a felony within the last 5 years or 7 years? If the conviction was over 7 years ago, they can mark no. However, if it's a current offense, what I've found, I know they're going through training in the pre-release program. I have found some old information. They're trained right now, and we have been trained in the past as to answering that question, willing to discuss. I'm not having the parolees do that currently. What I'm asking them to do is put on that line, you usually have two little boxes, one for yes and no. I've asked them to put a dash in both areas, and then on the line where it's an explanation. So when the application is actually reviewed by that potential employer, the employer is going to look at that and say, okay, but they're not discarded or thrown away. That gets them at least into the interview. That's where they actually have to sell themselves, is in that interview. So when the employer calls them for the interview, the question is, well, why did you mark the answer the way you had? And the response would be from that parolee, and we practice this. I've written it down for them. We practice this. I actually have a worksheet. I wasn't sure of the confidentiality of my information. That's why I put a dash in that spot. But this is what I've done. This is the offense I've committed, and we practice moving positively and forward with responding to that particular question. We have brochures or pamphlets that they can take with them, such as the tax credit, the on-the-job training, and fidelity bonding, a bonding program. So they take that information. We also provide the business liaison's business card, my card. So if that employer has a question regarding those programs or those incentives, they can contact one of us.